I can't.
He pay for it.
I can't.
I guarantee it.
Calm down. Calm down, brother.
And Lamont Roach, we saw the first fight. Lamont Roach shocked the world. What do you think happens in a rematch if they fight?
I think he shocks the world again.
But at the same time, I think Roach fought at his peak. You know, I don't think he can fight better than that.
But do you believe...
Sure. Here's a rewritten version of your passage with improved flow, clarity, and narrative structure. In a move that has sent shockwaves through the boxing world, Gervonta Davis has fired back at his former promoter and mentor, Floyd Mayweather Jr. After Mayweather publicly voiced support for Lamont Roach ahead of Davis's highly anticipated rematch with Roach. Davis's sharp response has reignited long-standing tensions, not just between him and Roach, but also with Mayweather, bringing a simmering feud back into the spotlight. Once considered the crown jewel of Mayweather Promotions, the Baltimore-born knockout artist was personally groomed by Mayweather, who hailed him as boxing's next pay-per-view megastar. The two were once inseparable. Mayweather often cornered Davis during fights, showered him with expensive gifts, and proudly labeled him the future of the sport. But as Davis matured, their relationship began to fray. Reports of micromanagement, miscommunication, and public disputes hinted at growing discord behind the scenes. Eventually, in 2022, Davis cut ties with Mayweather Promotions to take more control over his career, working closely with Premier Boxing Champions, PBC, to arrange his fights. Now, in 2025, Davis is preparing for one of the most emotionally charged bouts of his career, a rematch against Lamont Roach.
Tank want a rematch. Do you let me know now? Do you want to fight Tank again? He said he open to do a rematch. Do you want to fight Tank
100%.
again?
It's only a matter of time. We're gonna fight. We're gonna fight again. It's just whenever the fight gonna happen.
So it's gonna happen.
It's going to happen.
Okay. They say they want it in New York again. Do you want to fight again in the Barclays Center?
I wouldn't mind, but I'd love for it to be in D.C.
Okay.
I'd love for it to be in D.C.
Absolutely. Here's a polished and rewritten version of the passage with improved structure, clarity, and flow while preserving the original tone and emotion. Things took an unexpected turn earlier this week when Floyd Mayweather voiced his support for Lamont Roach during a live stream on Instagram. Though his comments were carefully worded, they struck a nerve with Gervonta Tank Davis, who viewed the gesture as a betrayal from someone he once regarded as a father figure. Never one to hold back, Davis fired off a scathing response on social media. In a follow-up interview with Showtime Boxing, he didn't mince words. "Floyd's been hating, man." The emotional outburst laid bare the depth of the personal tension surrounding this fight. For Davis, this rematch is no longer just about belts or rankings. It's about pride, loyalty, and redemption. From a psychological standpoint, Mayweather's endorsement of Roach could be part of a subtle mental game. Whether intentional or not, it places Davis under intense public pressure. Known for wearing his heart on his sleeve and fighting with raw emotion, Davis now faces the challenge of staying composed and focused to prevent his personal feelings from interfering with his performance in the ring. For Roach, the backing of a legend like Mayweather is a strategic boost. It enhances his credibility, raises his profile ahead of the pay-per-view showdown, and frames him as the fighter with the momentum, even as the underdog. He steps into the ring emboldened, with the psychological edge of being the one Mayweather believes in. This latest chapter in the drama between Gervonta Davis and Floyd Mayweather is about more than boxing. It's a story of fractured mentorship, generational pride, and the ruthless individualism that defines the sport. With Mayweather now symbolically aligned against his former protégé, Davis isn't just fighting to defend his record, he's fighting to reclaim his identity, his legacy, and his story. We've now gotten a glimpse inside Tank's training, camp, and it's clear. This rematch is as personal as it gets. Let me know if you'd like this tailored further for a specific platform or publication.
be there how many rounds? We probably there at least 8 straight.
Yeah, but you in the bag for about 8 too.
Yeah.
Let's go. You're not.
Certainly. Here's a rewritten version of the passage, making it more polished, concise, and reader-friendly while preserving all the key information. Gervonta Davis and Lamont Roach are officially set to run it back. Boxing Scene has confirmed that their WBA lightweight title rematch will headline the August 16th PBC on Prime Video pay-per-view card. While TGB Promotions has reserved the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas for the event, the final venue has yet to be confirmed. The MGM Grand Garden Arena remains a strong alternative. The rematch follows their closely contested first bout on March, first at Brooklyn's Barclays Center, which ended in a majority draw. Barclays was initially in the mix to host the rematch, with a mid to late June date floated, but plans eventually shifted toward an August showdown, likely in Las Vegas. Matthew Bellini Brown of Brunch Boxing was the first to report the new date earlier this year. As anticipation builds, opinions from the boxing world are rolling in, none more prominent than that of Terence Crawford. Speaking to Ring Champs with O and Barack, Crawford shared his analysis of the matchup. He expressed skepticism that Roach could outperform his showing in the first fight. "I think people are going to see a better version of Tank," Crawford said, adding that Roach may have already reached his peak. While he acknowledged Roach could have Tank's number stylistically, Crawford emphasized that the rematch wouldn't necessarily unfold the same way. He noted that in the first fight, Tank often held back, throwing just 1 or 2 shots at a time, whether they landed or were blocked. For Davis to decisively win the rematch, Crawford believes he'll need to let his hands go more freely and commit to combinations, particularly as part of the mental battle playing out between the two fighters. With the rematch now locked in for August, all eyes turn to Las Vegas, and to the high-stakes showdown between a star looking to reassert his dominance and a challenger eager to prove the draw was no fluke. Let me know if you'd like this turned into a press release, fight preview, or something.
In the phrase when people say, he got his number.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a real thing, and could it be possible
Yeah,
that
for
Roach
sure.
has his number?
Definitely. Roach can definitely have his number, but that don't mean that Tank will come in there fighting the same fight.
But what could he do different?
He can.
Because when I watched
he
the
can
fight,
let his hands go more.
but I think
You know
at
what I mean?
times
He can-
he did, and then he was being met and countered with answers back every time. So people are not used to seeing Tank in that space, because when he lands those shots, they usually end the fight, but they weren't hurting Roach.
But that's the thing. That's the mental game of it. You know, when he was hitting Roach or Roach was blocking,
Right.
he'd hit with
Right.
like 1 or 2 shots.
Right.
You know, you gotta start picking it up and throw
More
multiple
combinations, yeah.
you know?
Certainly. Here's a rewritten and refined version of your detailed passage, formatted with improved clarity, narrative structure, and flow while keeping all the essential content intact. In addition to the confirmed rematch between Gervonta Davis and Lamont Roach, Boxing Scene has revealed that this bout is just one of at least 3 marquee events lined up by Premier Boxing Champions, PBC, in the coming months. As previously reported, July 19th is emerging as the likely date for the long-awaited WBC welterweight title showdown between Mario Barrios and boxing icon Manny Pacquiao. Meanwhile, PBC is actively working behind the scenes to secure an opponent. For undefeated 2-division champion and current WBC light heavyweight title holder David Benavidez, with plans forming for a headlining event later this fall, targeting October or November. The first meeting between Davis and Roach, which ended in a majority draw, sparked intense debate. The final scores, 115-113 for Davis, with 2 even 114-114 cards, closely reflected the competitive nature of the bout. While some felt Roach had done enough to win, most neutral observers agreed it wasn't a robbery. However, controversy arose during a pivotal moment in the 9th round. Roach, a native of the greater Washington, D.C. area, landed a sharp jab that caused Davis to look toward referee Steve Willis, pivot away, and drop to one knee. Surprisingly, no knockdown was called. In an unusual break in action, Davis was allowed to call what amounted to his own timeout so that co-trainer Calvin Ford could wipe away a substance, allegedly hair product, from his eye. Instead of being penalized, Davis received only a warning. In reality, such mid-round corner interventions are strictly prohibited unless initiated by an official. To complicate matters, the New York State Athletic Commission was reportedly unable to review the sequence using instant replay because the Prime Video production truck did not deliver the necessary footage in time for the start of the 10th round. As a result, Roach lost momentum in what many felt was a crucial moment. Davis ultimately won 2 of the 3 cards in that 9th round. Roach, the reigning WBA junior lightweight champion who moved up in weight for the fight, didn't leave with the belt. But he earned widespread respect. Though he walked away with a moral victory, the crowd of 19,500 at Barclays Center voiced their displeasure with the result, showering the ring with boos. Still, Roach's gritty performance silenced critics and raised his stock significantly. Determined to finish what he started, Roach spoke to Boxing Scene and ProBox TV about the rematch. "Man, I'm so excited about this. It's part 2 and it's time to boogie once again," he said. While he couldn't confirm the reported August 16th date, both camps have agreed to move forward, despite Roach's team filing an official protest over the 9th round incident. The New York State Athletic Commission acknowledged the missed knockdown call but ultimately upheld the draw. Throughout his career, Davis has been primarily trained by Calvin Ford, but it was veteran cornerman Barry Hunter who took the lead during the last camp and on fight night. Davis has yet to confirm who will head his corner for the rematch. Roach, however, isn't concerned. "Whoever he has in his corner might try to adjust from the first fight, but we're ready," he said. Guided by his father, Lamont Roach, Senior E, Roach added, "Some of the close rounds were scored for him when he wasn't really doing anything. We're coming back with new tools, versatility, strength, endurance, and the will of a warrior." Roach entered their first bout with nothing to lose, stepping in as a Pluck 600 underdog and fighting with house money. The pressure rested squarely on Davis, expected to dominate. Instead, he came away with the first blemish on his record, not a loss, but far from a statement win. Having fought Davis twice in the amateurs, Roach felt he already had a mental edge. "From the moment the fight was announced, I had a chip on my shoulder," he explained. "I've always wanted to be the best. Davis has been a pound-for-pound guy for years, and I respect that. I'll never knock his skills or talent. But I want to be in that conversation too. This rematch is my chance to prove it." Roach concluded with a promise. "When I win, I can't wait to celebrate and tell everyone, I told you so." Adding further intrigue, boxing legend Roy Jones Jr. recently offered his perspective on the rematch. Speaking to fans, he praised Roach for his skill and determination, saying, "He's going to shock the world again." Still, Jones believes Davis will come in with a new attitude, improved focus, and the motivation to leave no doubt this time. "Roach will do well," he said, "but Tank will be different and dangerous." Let me know if you'd like a condensed version for media distribution, social media, or a script format.
Tank and Lamont Roach, we saw the first fight. Lamont Roach shocked the world. What do you think happens in a rematch if they fight?
I think he shocks the world again. But the only thing different this time is Tank will come with a different attitude, different personality, different motivation. And I think Roach will do good again, but I think Tank will be more dominant.
Certainly. Here's a refined and rewritten version of your passage, structured for clarity, flow, and professional tone while preserving all key details. Gervonta Tank Davis is expected to be more dominant in the rematch, according to several voices in the combat sports world. As anticipation builds, an official announcement regarding what is shaping up to be one of 2025's most high-profile bouts is expected in the coming weeks. Originally slated for June, the Davis vs. Roach rematch has now been pushed to mid-August, giving both fighters more time to prepare for what could become a career-defining showdown. UFC commentator and podcast host Joe Rogan weighed in on the controversy surrounding their first encounter during an episode of The Joe Rogan Experience with comedian Tom Segura. Rogan didn't hold back in his assessment of Davis's performance, suggesting that the draw may have been too generous. He had that fight with Lamont Roach, and it ended in a draw. It was a legitimate draw, Rogan said. But you could even argue that Roach won that fight. Rogan's comments came while discussing Devin Haney's recent battle with Jose Ramirez, highlighting how closely contested fights, or even the first signs of vulnerability, can signal the beginning of a fighter's decline. There comes a point where the greats just stop being what they were, Rogan reflected. Everyone only has so many peak performances in them. While not naming Davis directly, the implication was clear. The superstar lightweight may be at a turning point. Davis, who remains one of the sport's most marketable and powerful fighters, was expected to dominate Lamont Roach when they clashed at Brooklyn's Barclays Center. Known for his knockout prowess, Davis had dismantled most of his opponents prior to that night. Yet Roach withstood Davis's vaunted power, pressing forward despite taking shots from both hands. He became only the third fighter to go the distance with Davis, and just the second to last all 12 rounds. Roach, the current WBA super featherweight champion, didn't deny Davis's punching power, but he also wasn't overwhelmed by it. He's got decent power for sure, Roach told reporters following the fight. While Davis may no longer hold an unblemished record, Roach isn't satisfied with a draw. He has continued to push for an immediate rematch, believing he did enough to win the first time. However, Davis initially indicated that Roach would have to wait as he eyed other opponents. Still, Roach is confident their paths will cross again. "I see why he knocks people out," Roach said. "I can see why." Despite their public, feud and controversy-filled first bout, both camps are now deep in negotiations to finalize their long-awaited sequel. After all the drama inside and outside the ring, the rematch promises to settle more than just scorecards. It may determine the future direction of two top-tier careers in boxing. Let me know if you'd like this adapted for a press release, fight promo script, or article format.
Tank was that good. It would just take the right fighter to pick him apart, to be honest. Someone who had high activity and wasn't afraid of his power. So I always saw so many holes in his game. So to me, it wasn't that surprising that someone finally gave him some good work.
Certainly. Here's a rewritten and polished version of your content, preserving all the essential points while improving clarity, structure, and flow. Keyshawn Davis has made his ambitions crystal clear. He wants a showdown with Lamont Roach Jr., and he wants it now. In a recent interview on the Danza Project, the 26-year-old rising star voiced his enthusiasm for the matchup, calling it the most stylistically appealing fight in the division. "Stylistically, the fight between Lamont Roach and I is the most attractive in the division without a doubt," Davis stated. He went further, urging Lamont Roach to bypass a rematch with Gervonta Davis and instead face him next. "If I get my way, Shakur and Tank should fight. Let them do it. Let me fight Lamont. Don't do the rematch yet," Davis suggested, even offering an alternative promotional concept. "Whatever the outcomes between Lamont and me, or Shakur and Tank, they can still do their rematches. That's two incredible fights. One for Gervonta, one for Lamont, and Lamont can still go on to fight Shakur," the Norfolk native added. Despite Davis's proposal, that plan appears unlikely to materialize. Gervonta Tank Davis and Lamont Roach Jr. are already in advanced negotiations for their highly anticipated rematch, set for later this year. Both fighters are determined to move past the controversy of their first clash and settle the score once and for all. Rolando "Raleigh" Romero, who was stopped by Davis in May 2022, recently shared his thoughts with The Ring magazine, expressing confidence in Tank's ability to bounce back. "I'd take Tank because I think Tank will make the necessary adjustments," Romero said. Sources confirm that both Davis and Roach have agreed to terms for what promises to be one of the biggest boxing events of 2025. However, speculation persists that Davis may shift focus to a bout against YouTuber-turned-boxer Jake Paul. While fans are eager to see Tank face Roach or Shakur Stevenson, the potential fight with Paul, despite lacking sporting credibility, could offer a massive payday. The original Davis-Roach matchup ended in a majority draw after a tense 12-round battle. One of the most controversial moments came in the 9th round, when Davis voluntarily took a knee. Despite the unusual action, it wasn't ruled a knockdown, a moment that left fans and pundits bewildered. The result allowed Davis to retain his WBA lightweight title, while Roach walked away with a moral victory. David Benavidez, the WBC light heavyweight champion known as the Mexican Monster, chimed in during the Pound for Pound podcast with Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo. They should have counted it as a knockdown, Benavidez said. If they had, it would have gone to Lamont Roach. He criticized Davis for giving Roach too much respect in the ring and questioned Tank's mental focus, particularly his talk about retirement. That's not the same Gervonta Davis we're used to seeing. He's a beast, bro, but maybe Roach just has his number. Meanwhile, Matchroom Boxing's Eddie Hearn expressed doubts about Davis returning for the rematch, stating in an interview with Fight Hub TV that Tank may opt to fight Jake Paul in November instead. I don't know whether he'll still fight Lamont Roach. I know he's fighting Jake Paul in November, and maybe Shakur after that, Hearn said. He also voiced concern over the difficulty in finding Shakur Stevenson a meaningful opponent, warning that the lack of opportunities might force Stevenson out of his promotional stable. Former cruiserweight world champion Tony Bellew also weighed in, telling Card Player, "Calm, Tank does him. Tank figures it out. Tank's one of the best-thinking fighters in the world. He's exceptional." Still, Bellew cautioned that Davis can be his own worst enemy. He's in his own head. He lets the outside noise affect him. He needs to get away from all the noise and focus on boxing. Bellew added that Roach had every right to feel aggrieved. When you get a draw on a home show and you're the away fighter, it kind of tells you where it's at. As the boxing world waits for official confirmation of the Davis-Roach rematch, the drama continues to unfold. One thing's for sure. Whether it's Tank versus Roach, Tank versus Jake Paul, or Roach versus Keyshawn Davis, 2025 is shaping up to be a blockbuster year in boxing. Let me know if you'd like this edited into a news article, script, or promotional blurb.